Hey everybody, it's Bevin. Welcome to Bevin, a femme over 40 and her friends podcast. I'm your host, Bevin. I've said my name 3 times. It's time to start the show. So excited to introduce you to my friend Coy today. This is a fun episode. And one of the biggest reasons I do this podcast is because when I was a kid, I did not have access to alternate ways of being a happy, successful adult. I really thought that was just like, if I can't be talented at sports or music and become a rock star or star athlete, then I have to be smart and go to college and grad school and have a career, and therefore I would always be safe and successful. I wish as a child I was taught how to weather uncertainty because I think in these unprecedented times that continue to hilariously continue to be unprecedented. What a year the first couple weeks of this year have been. I just think that like if I could go back and teach myself to just have that muscle of uncertainty of not knowing how things are going to work out and just try anyway and follow the resonant path, follow the thing that lights you up, that is where I think I could have avoided a lot of school debt and a lot of chronic digestive disorders that I developed because I was living out of alignment with myself and my body. But you know, you live and you learn, and you become the adult that you needed as a child. And so I am the adult curating the podcast I needed as a child. And I'm very excited for you to meet Coy, who has truly like taken off into adulthood and created an itinerant digital nomad lifestyle that is, I think, very much of this time. And I'm excited for you to know Coy and to see that as a possibility potentially for you. I also had another podcast episode with a friend of mine who was boondocking. Her name's Meredith, and it's like I'll look and I'll put it on the show notes. I swear to you, I meant to know what podcast episode that was. And it's a video episode, and it has a tour of her, like she has a truck that she drives around in and sleeps in. And Coy has a Jeep and a school bus. And so I'm just fascinated by like itinerant lifestyles that like do different things and people who are willing to do adulthood differently. And I also want to tell you the best way to support this podcast is through my Patreon page, patreon.com/FKDP, which stands for Fat Kid Dance Party, which is my aerobics class for anyone who feels left behind by mainstream fitness. If you've ever been called too much, too fat, or felt too awkward to dance, mine is the supportive class for you. Even if like you haven't experienced any of those things, try out my class. I think it's really fun, and it is my high key, low key way of teaching people how to regard their bodies with love and grace. And really regarding yourself with love and grace, because that is how you bear uncertainty, is you just regard the world and yourself with love and grace. And one of the biggest ways I think we can really change the world in these times is to just focus on how we can do little things differently and better for ourselves, and like internalize the things we're learning and then externalize them in living life a little bit softer and a little bit nicer and a little bit kinder and a little bit more interdependent. The empire doesn't topple because a few people are pushing boulders in front of it. It topples because a bunch of people are throwing sand in the machinery. You know what I mean? And just kind of like stepping away from like ultra consumerism and doing what they want, which is, you know, just working us and extracting all of our capital. Anyway, how did I get off off that topic for my Patreon? I'm here to teach you how to get free in your heart and your mind before they take it all away, right? So, there's lots of offerings in my Patreon. It's not just my aerobics class, although the Zoom classes are tight, and it's a really cool community, and it's worldwide. And I really do genuinely think there's energy moving because we are dancing worldwide at the same time. And I have on-demand classes for folks who aren't available at the times I teach on Zoom. And the on-demand classes are also incredible. Like it's one of the coolest things about being an artist and like being unsure about this thing when I started it, that like now I feel like confident, like, oh, I just taught my best class. Like I keep peaking, and that feels really nice to just keep doing a thing and to get better and refine it and get better and refine it. So I'm excited to share that library with you if you want to join that level. And I also sell classes one off. So you can go on my Patreon page and there's a shop and you can see just individual classes you can just drop in. And so that's available too. So I would love to serve you in that way. And also, if you feel like this podcast provides value to you, like if you'll notice, I don't really have sponsorships. So if you want to kick some money my way, like I'm NPR or PBS, all the links to do that are in the show notes. And I just super appreciate you because I think the three main resources we all have are our time, treasure, and our talent. And you are bringing your time here. And so I'm grateful for that and appreciate you. And I'm excited for you to meet Coy.
Boy, welcome to the podcast.
Hey,
It's so good to have you here. I always like to start with business in the front. So, is there a way that people can work with you, or what do you offer?
so I offer my blog and other freelance writing as well as some event planning where I plan concerts or other events that get queer people into queer friendly spaces and outside. So that is mentioned on my blog as well as on my Instagram.
And your blog is
It's called Queer Vagabond.
okay. And is it queervagabond.com or is it queervagabond dot something else?
Queervagabond.com.
Awesome. Oh, buy in the URL. I love it. Uh,
Yep.
Okay, so I met Coy because Coy reached out to me to interview me for the Vagabond blog. And I just absolutely just fell in love with you and your lifestyle and your way of being an adult in life in a totally unique way. Um, how many rotations around the sun have you experienced?
28.
28. So you're smack in the middle of your Saturn return, which
Yep.
for folks who don't know, Saturn is like your kind of big daddy in the sky who is full of boundaries. I like to think of it as your crone wisdom, like when you're at the end of your life and you have all the wisdom you've gathered in your time on Earth, you go back to the times when Saturn comes back through your chart where it was when you were born. It takes about 27 to 30 years for it to make that rotation. And it comes back in and is like a wrecking ball and it goes through and it just trashes everything that is not in alignment with your true self. And I find people's Saturn returns just as an observer are much easier when they are more go with the flow kind of people who are following the resonant path versus people who are like me. My Saturn return looks like a wrecking ball, who are like, this is the vision I have for my life, and this is how it has to be for me to be safe. And I was very wrong because I've made a whole transformation since my Saturn return. So, coy. You are truly itinerant. You're really like a queer vagabond. Right now, you are broadcasting from your Jeep where you're car camping.
I am. So right now, I think the biggest thing about you mentioned my Saturn return is I moved from working in environmental policy where you sit in an office and you try to help make change through laws. I loved that, but was getting very burnt out. And so now I'm working at national parks and in other places where I spend a lot of my time backcountry and camping and such. So I figured why not save money by, car camping. So I live in my Jeep and then go backcountry camping, and I'm absolutely loving it. I just feel more free than I did when I was living in spaces where I was overpaying for an apartment I never spent any time in.
Yep. I have a friend leaving California who is like, I've been burning money just staying here. And it's cool because it's just a different way to live. Like, I'm curious how you maintain like hygiene and water and stuff like that, and battery and all the kind of necessary things that come along with survival camping.
I am crazy about hygiene. Like I have a big bag that's just toiletries. And I go to Planet Fitness like twice a day. Not only just I like to work out, but my big like wash your face and take shower and stuff in the morning, and then same thing in in the evening. And also most Planet Fitnesses are a great place to sleep. I see other car campers, I see van lifers, I see buses. Just most people will gather at the Planet Fitness to do those things, do their hygiene, and to sleep there.
Oh, I love it. It feels like, now that we're in a deep housing crisis in general, in America, I feel like this is like more and more people's solution, the van life solution. Um, and you also, okay, there's so many places we can go in this discussion. Okay, I want to talk about buying a bus. You you bought a bus to live in, but you're not living in the bus. So tell me more about like the bus situation and what you've learned in the buying a bus.
Ooh. I learned a lot about through my bus situation. I do plan to end up living in the bus, but um, like anything, there's money and stuff involved. Basically, what happened was I bought the bus and the Jeep that I'm in now in Maryland. And through, when you look on YouTube, you see a lot of young, able-bodied, happy, cute white people doing van life. Same thing with the bus, the schoolie life, as we call it. And a really big thing that I saw at the time was also you have your bus, you tow your Jeep or other like four-wheeled vehicle behind it, and that's really helpful for work camping where you can park your bigger vehicle and then drive your smaller vehicle to the grocery store, or if you're doing the beet harvest like to work or things like that, because driving the bus everywhere honestly sucks. So when my old car that just was struggling, and I sold it, I thought I'm going to get the Jeep. I figured it would be a good investment. The bus itself is a struggle. I bought it very, like, completely fixed up. It had a shower, it had a kitchen, it had a bed, it had a solar system. And the more I lived in it, just for months on end, I realized, oh, the shower system has leached water the more the previous owners took showers into the rest of the bus. And there, like, every piece of wood is water damaged. There is a bug infestation. I took some wood down in one spot and there was like a dead wasp nest. It's just the whole entire thing needs to be gutted and removed and redone, which you don't, that's not great. So it's going to take time and money and energy, which is why it's just kind of sitting at the moment while I focus on getting my career back in order.
Ugh, that is so real. I feel like life in general is like bring on another project because life is like, there's always a lesson to learn. I think I was definitely hypnotized by coloniality that like there's an arrival point and then you're coasting and everything's fine. That is not true. That is just always there's always a new lesson to learn. And I feel like that's the same is true with like any level of ownership. Like if you own the place you live in, like my RV that I live in, it's bring on another project. There's so many things that aren't done. I'm also high key concerned about my shower leaching.
Yeah, I think what I learned a lot right there is when it comes to things that, like a normal RV will be set up so that, hopefully that sort of things don't happen. Like the professionals did it. But this was just like two girlfriends and their two dogs that did this work. And the only thing that was done correctly, and even that was not quite done correctly, was the solar system. Everything else was done badly, but it looked very cute. And I don't know much about cars, so I was just like, great, this looks cool. I'm ready to do this, and jumped into a big decision without asking anyone else, without, doing, I did a ton of research. That's not it. But without looking at another bus because I was in a space where people don't do that. There weren't any other, but that was the only bus option I had seen in months. I was also going through a lot of personal things, so just it looked cute. I was in a rush, so that was the choice I made.
I think it's really good, honestly, even if we make decisions that we regret later, the process of having made a decision pushes us forward in the universe, which gives the universe stuff to work with, right? And so now, like, hopefully, people listening to this, listen, wisdom is applied experience, and it doesn't have to be your own experience. So you can learn from Koi to get other people to help you make these decisions and perhaps don't take the first lesbian filled school bus. Out there, even though lesbians can be quite competent, but like a lot of people are out there just building things based on YouTube and trying and failing, trying and failing. And a lot of building is like not getting it perfect, and even professionals. Like I know plenty of people with professional RVs that have many issues. And so, it is what it is, but you live and you learn. And tell me a little bit more about coming out. Like tell us about your identities and like how old were you when you knew that you were queer, and where you grew up and that kind of thing. Like paint our picture of the backstory of Koi.
Yeah, so I identify as a panromantic, demisexual, um, trans masculine. I love labels, but it takes me a minute to like say all of mine. Trans masculine. There we go. Because I don't really I feel like a trans man. I love to, also be an NB. Um, and all of this, this has only been like about 3 years for me. My whole entire family has known I've been queer for like years. However, as a person of color from the Caribbean, my dad from Jamaica, my mom from Guyana, that was pushed down very hard. Just that was very much like we don't do those things, don't like in various different ways. My family tried to shove it down, and I just believed that all of the things that made me me were things that women don't do. Until in my 20s I had to come out to myself again. And what made me feel like I was able to do that was when I finally got tired of dating straight men and decided to date someone who wasn't and had a girlfriend who was trans, literally like dated her, and then she started transitioning like a few days later. And I was like, whoa, I have to start learning about the queer community now. And when you meet someone who is transitioning, you start thinking, well, what's my identity? And things sort of spiraled from there.
Oh, wow. So you went all the way through high school, and graduated in the 2000s, like, or in the 20 teens, and
Hmm.
did not come out.
No, not at all.
But you knew that gay was a thing you could be, right? Like you were exposed to it like in culture.
I knew it was a thing I could be, but I knew it was a thing that existed,
Yeah,
but I
that
didn't,
existed, not
yeah, but I
that it
didn't
was
know it
for
was a
you.
thing I
Yeah.
could be. It's sort of like I didn't even know I didn't even know I was in the closet because I didn't know the closet existed. It
Yeah.
was just like a thing that people do, but it's not available for me to do, you know?
Yeah, that's exactly how I felt actually when I was once I finally knew that gay existed, because I didn't even know, like, there was no, I graduated in the 90s from high school, and like it like was not talked about. Like Melissa Etheridge wasn't yet out. Like when Ellen came out, that was like a huge moment in culture where like people, like, she was like a mainstream person on a primetime TV show talking about being openly gay. And then I was like, and it was before that that I knew gay was the thing you could be, but it was like I learned that through my friends eventually, and it wasn't from culture. And I feel like in like a post Will and Grace era, right? Like people have seen gay people existing. And so I think like understanding, because you don't know what you can have until you see someone doing it or having it, right? Like it's very different and hard to be a visionary, right? Like to be someone who like plucks something that has never existed before and creates it on Earth, right? Like I never thought I'd be a fat centered aerobics instructor. Like that didn't occur to me until I was like coming up with the class, and suddenly it occurred to me, and I was like, wow, who am I to do this? But who am I not to do this, right?
Yeah.
So it's like and it's hard, especially like in a monoculture when you're going to school and you're in a very like strict family culture, to perceive yourself outside of the limits other people have placed on you. And I love that it was in a romantic relationship, because it is so true. Like I have many, many friends who have been partners with someone who has transitioned, whether that relationship withstood those changes or not. But it really does like call to question, like, who are you now? Like there was a lesbian couple who retired in my neighborhood, and one of them had transitioned. So when they began as a couple, they were not lesbians, but then they died together as like a cute little lesbian couple with a couple of pugs. And like it's just interesting like how these things happen. Like the whole relationship has to kind of transition unless other people transition, and then you're like pinging off each other and you're like, wait. So
Yeah.
so that was only 3 years ago?
That was only 3 years ago. I'm trying to think. No, that was definitely longer because it was closer to 2019. Wow, that's like it's been a while.
These last 5 years have been a weird time warp. Like I feel like we went through a portal, and I'm like, I can't believe that was like, it feels like it doesn't count. Like I want that to be like 2 years, not five. Um,
Yeah, I think I squished them all together because I started my physical transition, like I started taking testosterone 3 years ago. Yeah.
mm. And what made you decide to start taking testosterone?
Well, I've always been uncomfortable and unhappy with the like extremely feminine parts of my body, but once again, just like didn't know that that was something I could do anything about. Um, just like I knew the second I knew top surgery was a thing, I was like, that's for me. The second I started, once again, my partner was taking estrogen, and I was like, well, I wonder what the other side of that is. And when I googled it and saw like what happens on your first year of testosterone, I was like, gonna do that, that's for me. So literally, once again, like seeing someone else being happy with their changes made me realize I want that for myself.
I love that. And I just want to say this for anyone out there who's like not doesn't have a lot of exposure to people with trans experience. There is like such a massive difference between the people who choose to go on hormones or do physical transition and people who regret it. And I think the people who regret it get a lot of airtime, but it's actually only 1% of people
It's
who regret.
ve-
Like it's so minuscule, and the people who regret having a tattoo, it's like 12 to 20%. So
yeah,
think about that. Like, and the trans panic, I think, is also like, again, like pay attention to who is trying to get you scared of other people, because like it's a scapegoat, and like the trans population is actually incredibly small, like compared to like the larger population, but like it makes such a tremendous difference in mental health and survival for people to choose to address the parts of their outward body or however they're identifying, like to align with who they really are, right? And so trans people have always existed, queer people have always existed, and we just have more science and medicine available to us now, and more communications, so people are more aware of what they can do to be happier. And why is someone else's happiness like affecting you, Karen, in Iowa? You know what I mean? Like I just all of this is just it's just distracting us from the way that they're pilfering us economically.
agreed.
Yeah. What has your experience been like just kind of living life? And like did you do your vagabond life before you came out or after you came out?
I think I started it after, no, I definitely started it after I came out, but I honestly would say it's because I started feeling more confident to do things like that after I came out. Like, it didn't even occur to me, hey, I want to travel more, or I don't like this office job. Maybe there's a way I could be a digital nomad. That's how it started. Is I decided not to redo my lease in my studio apartment in Baltimore with rats and holes in the ceiling and things. I was just going to live in the bus, and the way I did it, what because in on the East Coast, it's very very hard to find BLM land or other just like free places to park. Even, I rave about Planet Fitness, but even the Planet Fitness is there. It's very hard to just find a big enough parking lot to, not feel weird like parking in the corner. So I did work camping. So I would say, hey, I will be the camp host and do these duties, and but I also need to work during these hours and just juggle that.
Oh, that's so real. It's
Yeah.
really like, I think there's a lot of bravery that comes with wanting to choose a life that's off the beaten path. And that's something that like I couldn't even picture for me, back in the day when I was like, I was just, before we started recording, I was talking about getting laid off from this job that I had had. I was a lawyer. And I remember just fantasizing, like as I was driving my car, like everywhere. I had to do closings all over the place, and I worked very long hours. And I would fantasize about like going back to school because it's the only thing I knew what to do, and like becoming a librarian so that I could be a law librarian and then get a free doctorate. It was like the only path I knew was school because it's the only one we're really taught. But there's actually just so many cool ways to create your life, right? And if you can get some level, like now I am a functioning digital nomad, though I do not go very many places. But like I thought I'd be a digital nomad and like go place to place and do that, which might still happen, right? But like everything I do is online, and other than pet sitting now, but I can pet sit anywhere. So anyway, it's cool to realize that there's just so many different ways to do life and to figure it out. And like you don't have to do one thing. You had the one of the coolest jobs, I think, this summer. Will you tell us about working for actual Burning Man?
Yeah, I absolutely loved it. This summer, I worked for Burning Man. I plan on doing it again as many summers as I'm able to. Basically, my first time going to Burning Man was my dog died, and I felt like I needed a way to grieve her. And Burning Man has a temple where you go and you put pictures of loved ones or whatever you need, and you, of course, as you do, burn the whole entire thing and grieve together with everyone. I went the year of the rain that everyone talks about, so I didn't get to see it burn, but I still got to. That may be, I didn't even think about it. Be what sort of like sparked my idea for wanting to be a nomad was when you go to Burning Man, you meet many people. Even before I thought to work there, you meet many people who are doing that. Like they are doing the seasonal work that I'm doing, or they're doing the digital nomad work, or they're doing the one where you work really hard like at a factory or something for 6 months and then don't work at all for 6 months, all the different ways that you can do it. And so Burning Man may actually be the thing that like sparked this for me. But working there this summer was just absolutely amazing. I think the thing that I really love about it is it's sort of like you feel free to do things that you would not feel free to do otherwise. Like, I have a coworker who is like cis straight man, and he wore nothing but skirts while he was there, and he doesn't feel like he can do that when he's back home. I love me some tails and ears. I'm always wearing that when I'm out there. And it's not just clothes. You can run around barefoot. You can hug people and not worry about it's going to be taken as like sexual immediately. Like people just freely give hugs. It's just the culture is more like you appreciate everyone. Just every time you see a person, it's like that person is an amazing human. I'm glad they're alive here with me, and I love the good vibes.
One of the things that I experienced at the burn that I thought was like the coolest was other people's freedom in that culture sparks your own freedom. Like
Yeah,
when you're just like on day three and you look up and you see a pirate and you're like, of course, like you know what I mean? Like it's just normal. I
yeah,
felt so free, like I could this is how I know I felt so free was like I noticed I started singing along at the top of my voice to anything I felt like singing along to. And like oh, on the last day I was there, someone was playing on like one of those loudspeakers, Take This Job and Shove It. I am working here no more. And that is a very fun song to sing at the top of your lungs with anybody else around who might also be singing. And like, because it's like if everyone else is obnoxious, I get to be obnoxious,
yeah,
Like, and it's like it really is like such a great culture. I think that everyone could benefit. I don't think it's for everyone, but I think everyone could benefit from going once just to see what it's like when people are just released and free.
yeah.
And I was really actually kind of shocked at how many queer people there were. There was like the queer flags were flying, the trans flags were flying. Someone had a really cool queer pride flag that had a big drop of water on it. And I was like, is this to encourage our people to stay hydrated? Uh, they did not have a fun answer for that, but and it actually, I don't even think they knew why there was a drop of water on it. But I was like, now I want to call this the hydration flag because we will survive in spite of them wanting us to not.
I love it. I honestly think that like queer and neurodivergent people, or at the very least, like really good allies, are the majority. At the very least,
Yeah,
like at regional burns where you don't have to like travel all the way across the US to get there. Um, that was
meet.
something that
I didn't meet a single neurotypical person when I was at that burn. Not a single.
exactly. Yeah. I think something that I found really inspiring at one of the regional burns that I went to is just like one of the insecurities that I've always had is like I don't do well in big groups.
Mhm.
Like as a military kid, I've always had like one good friend and then, would move away and lose that good friend. So would struggle to like get into a group of like 12 and go bar hopping or something. But I was free camping where instead of being in a camp, you just hang out on the field with about 12 people at it's called Flipside in Texas, and just made really good friends with these people. And one night we went out and, bar hopped. They're the bars that get made up by other burners. And at one point just like saw something I liked and disappeared to go look at the sculpture. And when I found them and came back, everyone was like, "Oh my God, where were you? We missed you. We were looking for you." And that made me just I can't even explain the like warm fuzzies because I didn't even think that they would miss me being gone from the group. Just an insecurity that I didn't even realize I had. It was you learn about a lot about yourself, I should say.
Yeah. It's exposing. It like exposes things to us that I think we don't know because it's such a different culture than
Yeah.
like this traditional culture. And it's very much a culture of interdependence where like we offer freely, right? And like there's so much giving. And I love that. And I think it's just such a different it's the way we need to go if we're gonna topple this patriarchy. And oh, this was a good question I have for you, which is when you wear ears and a tail, do you have a specific species that you're representing, or do you change it up?
I change it up. I think it's literally just I think it's a cute accessory. The same way as if you're wearing a necklace or something. I have multiple tails. I have a rainbow one. I have like I think it's supposed to be a wolf, like a wolfy one. And for me, I think because I have to be so minimalist with the way I live, I want to have souvenirs from places I go that are also usable. And every tale that I've gotten is from a music festival that I've gone to. And it's not only like a fun thing that I can wear and get compliments on and just enjoy, but also I can remember like, ooh, I went to Glow Project and that was really fun.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
At Burns, other than bar hopping and hugging strangers, what are other highlights of things that you like to do at a burn event?
My absolute favorite thing to do at any burn event, the regionals, the big one, is the art, whether it's the big pieces that, people spent months making and end up burning. Those are absolutely amazing, but also like the little ones that, will just be like posted outside of someone's tent, and you get to see like, wow, someone made that art and they're not expecting to get paid for it. It's just like a cool piece of art. um, I absolutely love all of the art, especially seeing it all light up at night. I love the food. It's a really fun challenge. I did this on one day during the burn to spend all day not eating your own food. Just run around and be like, oh, that person has grilled cheese. This person has crepes. This person is giving out snow cones, and just eat all the free food. It's really fun, and you know I absolutely love all the food. Um, I love the like sheer creativity that goes into it. Not one of like the favorite camp that I have so far that I went to was this like hole in a wall like on E Street. I'm not even going to try to explain the grid, but camp that I went to had a whole little haunted house. Like they were standing outside in like a Freddy Krueger mask and being like, "Come inside, we have something spooky." And they had set up like a big, massive tent with a haunted house inside, where there were animatronics, and they like one person was like standing really still, and when you walk past, they do a little ah, and I it's just like these people put hours and hours, and we're standing there like, do you like it? And I'm like, yes, I like it. It's really good. Yeah, I absolutely love people just doing things they're passionate about and like getting a place to show it off.
You know what? The thing that kept going through my mind when I was at the burn I went to this year was everybody's so creative. Like, and the people who camped next door to us did a scary clown haunted house, which like I declined to go into because the scary clowns and haunted houses neither are for me. But it was funny because it took them days to put it together. Like I watched it, it didn't really come together until Saturday. And I was like, wow, you guys worked really hard to put this all together. And yeah, it was it was fun to just get to be part of so much radical self-expression and also all the free food. Amen. So much good food.
And I think also just like you get everyone gets a chance to let their guard down. Like something I notice in the we call it the real world, in the real world versus the burns is like I feel it in myself is like if a random stranger approaches you, you have to sort of be like, what do they want from me? Are they going to like try to sell something to me or even like pull a knife or are they just trying to say hi? Because that's not the go-to. To just want to say hi is not the go-to in the real world versus like at a burn, just like, hey, I like your outfit is the go-to. Or like, I remember not too long ago, I was at this Planet Fitness and, someone was here with a bus and I, knocked on the door to be like, ooh, I'm in the process of renovating a bus. I'd love to see your rig. And she opened the door angrily and was like, what do you want? And I was like, oh, I just kind of wanted to see your rig. I'm working on the same thing. And she said, I'm busy. No, bye. Saw that she was another person of color and figured she has probably been through a lot of like weirdness with people wanting to come inside and not wishing her ill versus wishing her well versus at a burn or a regional burn, the amount of people that are just like hanging around in their underwear and are like, yeah, come inside and look around. Like it's a very everyone is just more relaxed.
Yeah. I think it's interesting because I too grew up moving a lot and did not have consistent friends as a child, and it really affected. And I was an only child, and it really affected like how I feel safe in social circumstances as a grown up. And one of the things that I've been really using to work on my own social anxiety is talking to strangers, being the stranger that literally just wants to say hi, brighten up your day, make the short connection, and like it's been very therapeutic for me to talk to strangers because some people are rude, but it's not even every day. Like if I'm doing this when I'm really in my habit, I'm doing it every day, trying to talk to at least 10 people. It's like a little game. But it's actually really good for me because I can tell the difference in my mental health when I've had three connections in one day versus one or two or less. And because being isolated really spins me out. So like the more I can externalize, even if it's just 5 minutes, like it just makes such a big difference to me. But like it's interesting how you would think that more people would be rude, but like the worst it usually is someone doesn't say hi back to me. But every now and again someone's super weird. But like whatever, like nobody ever died of awkward, so I try to just kind of live through it. And most of the time I end up having at least one or two really great bright conversations with someone I would never have talked to if I hadn't just like said give him a compliment at the gas station, you know what I mean? Like, but
Yeah.
I get it. Like there is just a genuine hostility people have. I mean, I live in a retirement neighborhood. I'm gesturing to my neighborhood, where there's several women who like don't talk to anybody and like they're grumpy and they stay shut away and that's how they want to live out the rest of their lives. And I don't fault them for it, but like I want to do something different.
I agree. And I've had to change my life in that I used to have a natural buffer for that because I had a dog, and most people want to come pet the dog. So like I could just be walking around and like make friends. Versus now I have to like make an effort to meet people. Like I just had an amazing evening last evening because sometimes, I do the thing where I go on dating apps just to make friends. Like I met someone on a dating app. We mutually agreed to just be friends. And now I am invited to their like queer board game night that they do every Thursday, and that was a really great time. So just like finding different ways to like meet people and do things does take work though.
Yes, it always takes work and it takes vulnerability, but there is no intimacy without vulnerability, and you have to take the risk. Like in a dating relationship, somebody took the risk of saying like, taking being like, "Hey, I'm interested in you in this dating way," right? Like someone takes that risk, someone was vulnerable, and it's really like a life on the edge of just continuing to push outside that comfort zone is the juicy life that's worth living, and like the connections and all of that good stuff. And then also just showing up to people's board game nights, even though you don't know anybody, right? Like just doing it because eventually then, everyone becomes someone you've already met, right? And so, um, what dating apps are you using as a queer person in the world?
I like Hinge and Field. So like Feeld. I don't like Field as much because like it's sort of like assumed that you want sex. It's like the whole point is like put your kinkiness out there, and like I'm figuring out my sexuality because once you go through your transition like that changes. I
Yeah.
literally don't know what I want. So I think going with a dating forward mindset is easier for me. So like Hinge is the main one.
You know what I find funny about Hinge and Field as like two apps that introduce you to people but do it in different ways. Hinge will like threaten you if you don't use your real name, and Field threatens you if you do use your name. And the thing I found on Field that I thought was the most sociologically interesting thing is that the astrological sign most likely to put it in their field name is Aries.
Mm.
So anyway, I just thought that was funny. And like, Bella is a very common pseudonym for women on on field. Um, oh, I love that. Coy, what's your dream? Like, what does your dream life look like? Like, not just like what's next, but like truly, like if you could conjure your dream life, like time and money are not like a barrier, what does that look like for you?
I kind of have it like I've been slowly zooming in on what I want it to be. My dream life would be to run sort of like what you are living in, but like a bit more like focused, where it's an intentional community where people are like parking their RVs or their tiny houses and they're like paying a very affordable price to do that and like live there. And there are organized things like the easiest one would be like let's play bingo, like once a week. But more likely, like everyone would get involved. Like, hey, I'm a yoga teacher. I'm gonna offer yoga on Sundays. Things like that. I have put roots down in New Mexico and I love it. But what it gave me the idea that there's no music festivals here, and I love music festivals, and I would love to start one. So to have a good piece of land that is like not next to anyone who would have an issue with my intentional community full of queer people, and my music festival, as well as at least once a year, like a queer like summer camp. Either for probably two of them, one for adults and one for young people, like young queer people.
Yeah. Oh, wouldn't life have been totally different if you could have gone to a queer summer camp as a young person?
That would be absolutely amazing. I think summer camps are great. I went to a lot of summer camps just because, like, as a military kid, sometimes you just have to like get dumped somewhere. But the summer camps were all based around my interests, like around writing and around like riding horses and things like that, which are great. But often, that's all you have in common with those kids is like you both like to write stories. If I had been able to go to a queer summer camp, it's not just getting to connect with those kids at summer camp. It's like my parents support me enough to put me in this summer camp. you
Yeah.
know, yeah. Mhm.
And and it also makes just a big difference to be able to like be your full self, and like I feel I really struggle with identity politics, like not in like a huge way, but like in a way where like I was very attached to them, because when I finally like came out as queer, fat, and femme, it like changed my whole life. It was like all these things I was afraid to be, and then I finally was, and I was like, oh, it's great over here. Like, what was I so afraid of, right? And like, but then I kind of see it now more as like it's almost like it's just like a healing space to like be in the identity with common people, because it's just because someone's queer doesn't mean they're trustworthy, and just because someone's fat doesn't mean that they're trustworthy, right, or that they have my best interests. But there is an affinity there, and so it's helpful to have these places to heal in, especially like as like retreats and things like that. But I really do think like I'm really into the idea of like just kind of oneness, because like as we were, as you were kind of alluding to and you were talking about your identities, like our identities get very specific, and like it almost like loses connection with other people, right? Because like demisexual matters like when you're in trying to have a romantic relationship with someone, but my demisexuality is really not relevant to most people I meet and interact with, right? So like, it's just like figuring out like where we have this like we're all one place. And Shaman Durek talks about this a lot too. Like he talks a lot about like identity stuff, and like he's like, I don't want to create separations for people, but I also am a Black man who's bisexual and was raised in the United States. And so like there's a very specific, you know, matrix that we're in that was created by like these white supremacists who had like an agenda for us. And like how can we like create this liberation that is just so revolutionary and so irresistible that it like kind of helps to encourage other people to get free from that stuff too. I don't know if you have any
Like,
thoughts about identity stuff.
yeah, what made me so passionate about like identity like healing spaces is getting to take part in one. My friend Ty Turner, he's like a big YouTuber and is currently like we got to be good friends through this thing. Once a year, whenever he can, puts on like an event where like a few of his followers get to go on a retreat. Retreat as in like mainly like going camping. And the first one that he did was to Yellowstone, and me and a bunch of other trans guys. And there was, yeah, a bunch of other trans people because it wasn't just trans guys. And his mom, who is perfect, just like she's amazing. Just like all went to Yellowstone and had an amazing time. And I think one of the best ways to put it was like our guide, who was just like a straight cis white woman, who was like there to who was there to like show us around Yellowstone and like help us do all of our activities, mentioned later that like hearing all of our discussions about like our identities and our lives and like our wants for the future just like blew her mind in a way that like she didn't know that existed. As well as like I was able to like talk about things because I was that's 2 years ago. I was very early in my transition. I was able to talk about things like sex and testosterone and bottom growth and just like things that I share with other trans masculine people that I don't share with literally anyone else, that I didn't share with the trans woman that I was dating at the time. Just like people who are going through similar things as you do, like it is important to like be able to commune with those people.
Yes, especially as like a minority in any way. Like when your experience is not reflected by the people around you, it's very isolating. And I think that's one of the coolest parts of the internet is like how we can connect and like create friendships with people we would never have known if not for YouTube, if not for your blog, if not for podcasts, right? Like here we have this ability to like network and connect. And I think that's so transformative. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay. Coy, any other parting thoughts for anyone that you like, wisdom you have, or anything that you want to share?
I think my thought that I'm really focusing on right now is to, if you have something that's really important to you that you're excited for, it sort of goes back to what we were talking about with the Saturn's rising, is to not get discouraged if it feels like a tall mountain to climb, to instead sort of like dissect it into piece by piece, like what can I do today to help make this happen for me later. um, yeah, that's the biggest thing that I've really been thinking about, and that has really been helping me to sort of like achieve all of my goals.
Yes, that is very good advice. Um, it really is like it's something I wish I had internalized as a young person. I think it would have relieved a lot of stress that I had because I would look at life and feel so daunted by it, but instead of like just being like, what's bringing you joy and how can you move towards that a little bit every day? Coy, what is your astrology, your big three, your sun, moon, rising?
Ooh, I struggle with remembering everything, but I'm a Taurus.
Okay,
Yeah, and then yeah, that's the only one that I know off the top of my head.
it's all good. But yeah, we love a Taurus here on the podcast. The Lux life, the hardworking life. I love it. Coy, thank you for your time. Thank you for being here. I'm going to put all your links in the show notes. People can come read your blog and come find you at whatever burn you might be at the Big Burn. And you're going to wait, what's it called in New Mexico? You're going to the one in February, right?
So the one in for New Mexico is going to be Sunburn. That's in July. I was going to go to Apogea and I forget the ones in the neighboring states. But I'm just going to sort of focus on Sunburn this year because I have so many other things going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, some things that are coming up is for anyone in southern New Mexico. I'm going to be hosting those events that I talked about. It's called Pandemonium. It's currently a goth night, but I'm definitely going to be expanding it into that music festival that I talked about, where it's going to be for like anyone who feels like they're alternative to like the typical culture and love music and art to just show up and have a good time.
Love it. I love it. Coy, I'm so glad that you reached out to me and that we crossed paths and that you were willing to share your story on the podcast. And I'm very much looking forward to doing this again and continuing to check in with you on your journey through life.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's always good to talk to you.